Hi, Simon. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with our clients and speak to iElevate this morning. We are so excited to have you.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, do you want to just tell us a little bit of background on who you are? And we know about your book. How did you kind of get started with coaching and how did you launch your business?
I was working at Disney, and Disney sent me to Paris a number of years ago to design a leadership program for 1,000 leaders out of Barclays Bank out of London. And while I was there on stage, Lion King had just come out, and I said, "Remember who you are. You are more than what you have become." And people came up to me afterward, Danielle, and they had a lot of questions. And I said, "Oh my goodness." I went back to my hotel room that night in Paris, and I asked myself three questions. Question number one, what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? Two, what would I do if no one paid me to do it? And then question number three, which came out of a book I was reading at the time, written by an author named John Etheridge. And in John's book, Wild at Heart, John says, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive. And when I answered those three questions, I said, I want to speak, write, train, consult, and coach. So when I came back to Orlando from Paris after being there, I said, okay, I have to figure out an exit strategy. And so from that, my exit strategy was to start to work on getting certified and learning a lot more about coaching and reading and writing and beginning to identify who are the coaches out there in the work that are doing the work that align with my values.
Awesome. I love it. Very similar to how I feel. I love organizational change and I like my background has been being put on projects either in the disability community or in healthcare that are failing or underserved or underfunded or team dynamics that need to shift and change. And I feel like I'm always put on these projects. I'm like, ah, maybe there's a reason I was here. And then with my clients, I just think that it is the best journey to join up with somebody and just meet them with where they're at and see them to the other side. So that is great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Could you just like tell us a little bit? A lot of our clients are they're coming into my coaching practice and they're saying, I just don't know what I want to do with my life. Or I'm in a job and I know what my career path is, but the job didn't work out for me. Or corporate America, I'm struggling to find my niche or figure out like co-worker dynamics. So, how do you feel like our life story, does it communicate our calling to us along the way? It sounds like yours did. Do you feel like everyone has a little bit of that if they dig deep to kind of look through what their life story was, that maybe is a sign pointing them in the direction of what they should be doing with their life?
So, one of the things that I've taught over the years is that conformity robs you of creativity. And what I mean by that is when I wrote the book Release Your Brilliance a number of years ago, it's available in audio. I introduced this concept called finding your universal assignment. Your universal assignment is the intersection of where there's a problem in the world, it intersects with your gift, your talent, your ability. Everyone listening to us, you have a natural inkling, something that you would do. It comes easy to you. You don't have to think about it. And sometimes you have to ask people in your life, what are those things that I naturally gravitate towards? Because that is a sign that that's perhaps your universal assignment, number one.
Mm.
Number two, what irks the fire out of you? What gets on your last nerve that whenever you see it, it's that fingernails on the chalkboard moment. And could that be a sign or an inkling or a hunch that perhaps you are the solution to that problem? And I think the third thing to consider, and this is the question that is not taught in school because we go to school to pass a test, to graduate, but there should be more of a conversation, not necessarily what do you want to do when you grow up or who do you want to be when you grow up. The bigger question is what problem have you been created to solve? And when you begin to think about solving problems, that taps into your resilience and brilliance.
I love that. I love conformity robs creativity. And it really does. That is so true. And there's a lot of fear and faith practices there, right? Because stepping out into your creativity requires getting over the fear. Are there some guiding principles that you think you would say to somebody related to that? Okay, maybe they know their brilliance or they have an inkling of what they should do. There's some risk involved there. Do you have any tips and tricks for getting over that fear? Like, what is one of the principles of developing a resilient mindset?
Start and figure it out. And what I mean by that, so many times an individual can spend too much time in their head focusing on the shoulda, coulda, woulda, didn't, maybe, what if. And when you just simply start. So, for example, how did you learn to ride a bicycle? You got on the bicycle and you started pedaling. Now, you probably may have fallen off, right? But then you got back up and you continued to move forward. You started the process. How did you learn to drive a car? You got into the car and you drove. My first couple of times, and I say couple, when I was going to get my driver's license, I actually failed the driver's license test both times because I didn't know how to parallel park. So what did
Mhm.
I have to do? I worked with my father, and my father began to show me the art of parallel parking. Guess what? Today, I can parallel park. Obviously, I got my license, but I started and I figured it out. I didn't
Mhm.
beat myself up. So that's probably the big thing. I think the second thing is, who are the individuals that perhaps are already doing what you're doing? Success leaves clues. How do you begin to go on YouTube? How do you begin to search on Google? How do you begin to go to Chat GPT or Claude AI and begin to say, I'm interested in this field, this industry, this career? Who are the top 10 people that are shaping the conversation? Because if you read one book a month in that space, in 10 years, you would have read 120 books, and that would put you in the top 1% of the field, according to Mark Victor Hansen. So, how do you begin to find out who are the subject matter experts in that
Mhm.
space?
One of the things that I've noticed is when people go to look for a job, they come to me and they say, I've applied for 150 jobs on Indeed and LinkedIn, and I've not heard back. Or I have landed an interview, but I never heard back after the interview. Classic problem. And I'm like, well, what are you trying to impact? What's your mission? Oh, I don't know. I'm in data science. Okay. Well, who's making the biggest impact right now in data science for whatever we have to have a niche, right? So I tell clients to get hyper specific with what it is they want to target and change. And then exactly what you just said, who's out there doing that? And I love that what you just said, success leaves clues. That is really great because I think it's oftentimes we're in our head and what you said, we're beating ourselves up. That negative mindset can really hold us back. So, do you have a core routine that helps you get out of a negative mindset and cultivate this resilience and brilliance that you speak of?
My day starts at 4 a.m., and for me, I start with meditation, breathing, writing in my day one journal. And disclaimer, I have no affiliation with day one, but it's a really cool app that I've been using probably for the last 4 or 5 years. And I just downloaded. And what the app allows me to do is to write what I'm feeling and sensing and thinking about in the moment. It allows me to import videos, photos that really just kind of highlight, so it's a multimedia experience. So I take that first couple of hours of the day to set the tone for the day, because how you start the day determines the day. The second thing, and I've got my Fitbit on, and my goal is to get a minimum of 5 to 8,000 to maybe 10,000 if I'm fortunate steps every single day. So I'll go walking. And while I'm walking, I'm listening to a book, a
Mm.
podcast, or something that is feeding my soul, feeding my mind, helping me think about, how am I approaching the day. But then to round out the exercise, I also go through what are my values, tend to add value every single day. And you're probably saying, why do I go through this particular routine? And what I've discovered, I was listening to a facilitator years ago, and he said, you don't decide the future, you decide your habits. The secret to thriving and truly being resilient is hidden in the daily routine. So, what I've realized is when I set the tone at the very beginning of the day, no matter what happens, throughout the day and something may go sideways, I come back to the center. I come back to my practice of how did I pray this morning? What did I say? What did I articulate? What did I write in my journal? Sometimes I'll go old school and actually write in a physical journal instead of a digital journal. But it's that practice that just really establishes and grounds me for the day.
I love that, the day one app, and it is a practice. I do think it requires practice. It's not something that's going to come naturally always right away. 4 a.m., you've beat me by an hour. Awesome. Okay. So, how can young adults in today's society, where I feel like we're very hyper connected, but there is this like really a lot of anxiety, and a lot of just like fear of missing out and, kind of just overstimulation. So, how can young adults get centered around their meaning and their mission and take risks without fear? Do you think maybe tuning out the world and waking up that early is really what we need to do in today's digital age to get alone time with our creator and with the universe? I mean, because I feel as though as soon as we're up, it's Alexa, it's, news debrief, it's what's going on in the world, it's Instagram, TikTok, and it's just a barrage. And for the younger generation, they've grown up with this. They've had their smartphones at the tips of their fingers since they were, 6, 7, 8 years old versus I never had a phone until I was 16. So, and it was not a smartphone. So could you just maybe talk to that and just what can parents be doing? Because we also have parents that contact us with teens and young adults, and they say, well, we're really worried about our young adult. They're not thriving, they're video gaming all day. What do you have to say to families about that?
Well, the first thing I would say to parents, and especially mothers, you are doing a great job in raising your amazing young adults. So thank you for the great work that you do. I think the next thing to consider, specifically as it relates to parents, is to identify what is your child's learning style. And
Mm,
what I mean by learning style, are they visual, auditory, hands-on? But then how do they also want to receive feedback or be appreciated? And understanding how they receive information, I think, is critically important. Dr. Howard Gardner, he's a professor of education at Harvard, talks about the multiple intelligences that exist in children, in young adults. So, what is it that you notice about your child or your teenager or your young adult that is right about them?
mm,
And when you begin to call those things out, you begin to say, how do we feed into that? Do we find a coach that allows them, if they have a gifting in music, sports, arts, science, business, how do you surround them, create a surround sound of someone to really kind of help fan the flame of that seed of potential that's in them? And then how do you continually encourage them? Because language is the software of the mind, encouragement is oxygen for the soul. So, how do you begin to encourage them as they are moving along life's path? Now, to the first part of your question as to what individuals can do. And it really, really comes down to, as I mentioned a moment ago, what makes me come alive. But if this was the last day on earth, how would you want to be remembered? And
mm,
what that question does, it challenges you to say, wait a minute, I need to create a digital vacation to reflect on what difference did I make today. And not like you're going to leave Earth tomorrow, God forbid, but if you live with that ethos of, you know what, I need to find a rhythm of reflection and gratitude where I hit the pause button, I put do not disturb, and I just get quiet and I begin to think about, who did I help today? Research has come out of Emory University that says when you help someone else, the reward centers in your brain begin to light up almost as if you have been on the receiving end of the person you've just helped. And they call it the helper's high. So,
Mhm.
what would it be like in the most positive way to get high every day? Because you intentionally say, how do I help someone every single day? I heard something, I was listening to a podcast, and the author, her name escapes me, but one of the things that she talked about is looking at hope through a different lens. And is helping one person every day. So
I love it.
you want to find your purpose, you want to tap into your brilliance, your resilience. How do you help one person every day? Not for the accolades or the pat on the back or the shout out or the like, the comment, the post. It's not about that. How do you help one person every day without looking for anything in return?
I think what you're saying is it's talking to softening, it's talking to empathy, it's talking to, I've got problems, but what are the other problems out there? When we get out of our head and our problems and into someone else and what's going on with them, it changes and shifts that dynamic of our day. Today is a really powerful word. Today is presence. That is amazing. So hitting that pause button, a digital vacation every day. I really like that. Thank you. And the word hope, helping one person every day. I love that. The tips and tricks for success in career development, kind of coming back to that. That was my next question for you. What are your tips and tricks for success in career development? It sounds like it has to do with the power of today and routine. What if someone's facing a very large challenge on their current job or is unhappy with their current job and feeling stuck? What would you say a tip is for getting over the feeling of being stuck? I feel like all of us have had that moment in life when we feel stuck. Do you have any ideas for that?
When you feel stuck in your job, go back to day one when you first joined. What was it about that role, the company, the department, the division, the leader, the product that is sold to a customer? What was it that captured your head, your heart, and your hands? Go back and relive that moment and get in touch what really connected to you deeply. That's number one. Number two, just because you don't feel the love for what you are doing right now does not mean you're not learning. Learning is not supposed to be easy because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. The way to really learning and breaking through to the next dimension is in suffering and pain and disappointment and frustration. So here's the net frustration and being flustered is a gift because it invites you to step back and to get a bigger perspective of saying, this is really tough right now, and I'm not feeling it. What am I supposed to learn, unlearn, and relearn? Just don't quit, pack up your tent, put your resume out on Indeed, and go somewhere else. Could it be that you're being invited to lean into this for who you become in the process? Point in case, I'm working at Disney and I'm working for a leader. I have to give him a weekly report of what was accomplished that week. And he marks it up in red, sends it back to me, says it's too tactical, it's not strategic enough. And after this going on for many weeks, I marched into his office, closed his door, and I started screaming, you don't like me. You don't care about me. You're trying to hold me back. You're working against me. Blah, 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 right? You can hear us down the hall at the Magic Kingdom, and it was not a very pixie dusted conversation. And he said to me, the reason I am so tough on you is because one day you may be sitting in my seat and I'm getting you ready for what's to come. So I can't be your friend. I can't be your buddy. I have to be hard on you because if I'm not, who else will do it for you? So
Mm.
for those who may be stuck right now, wherever you are, step back and say, what's the bigger picture? Zoom out. There's a saying that says you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. Zoom out, step out, and say, what is this really, really about? Is it just about me and everything that I want? And I'm not saying you shouldn't deserve having peace and being psychologically safe. And certainly you shouldn't work in a toxic environment. I realize that sometimes there are people that you work with that are more negative than an undeveloped piece of film. I get that. But step back and just really say, okay, I went through everything to get here. I got the job. Now, how do I turn this into an opportunity? Because a paycheck is given to people who show up, but opportunities are given to people who think and work beyond what they're paid to do. Have I really thought and have worked beyond what they hired me to do instead of just air quotes a job?
Love it. I'm writing that down. I think our clients are going to love this talk today. I feel as though this is so on point with some of the things that we face every day together on our calls and in person with our clients. Okay, so Simon, just to wrap up, if clients want to reach you, what's the best way to follow your work? Do you have any other books coming out on the pipeline? And then just additionally, the research that you've done that went into your book, what's the future of that and your coaching practice?
So obviously simontbailey.com is my website. All the information that you want to find out about me, what we're working on is there. And certainly you can sign up and get the State of Work in America report, Thriving in Resilience and Brilliance. You can download it there. And I think the future of our work is really simple. How do we continue to help people maximize their brilliance wherever they show up and really add value and not wait for the tap on the shoulder to work harder, but to be smarter?
Thank you so much.